Macbeth does not murder Duncan because he is too ambitious. He murders Duncan because he cannot control himself.
Yes, the political crime starts as a private collapse. Before he can ruin Scotland, he fails to govern his own mind.
That matters because people turn Macbeth into a simple power story. Man wants crown, man kills king. That is too blunt and too lazy.
The play is sharper than that. Macbeth does want power, but wanting something is not enough to explain this murder. What pushes him over is that he cannot master fear, imagination, shame, or desire once they start pulling against each other.
So before he becomes a tyrant in public, he is already unstable in private.
Exactly. Look at him before Duncan dies. He is not a cold planner. He is divided, agitated, and trying to talk himself into and out of the same act.
And Shakespeare shows that fast. Macbeth knows Duncan is his king, his guest, and a decent ruler. He lists reasons not to kill him.
Right. That scene matters because it kills the cheap reading that Macbeth is some unstoppable machine of ambition. He sees the moral, political, and practical barriers clearly. He says the only thing pushing him forward is vaulting ambition, which is really another way of saying he has no stable check on himself.
Then, Lady Macbeth attacks his manhood, and people often stop there, as if she just programs him.
But she does not create the impulse. She exploits weakness that is already there. If Macbeth had self-command, the taunt would fail. Instead, shame works on him because he is governable by pressure from outside and panic from inside.
And then, his imagination starts doing damage before the murder even happens.
This is one of the key points. Macbeth does not just think about killing Duncan. He sees the act in his mind so intensely that the vision starts ruling him. The dagger scene is not decoration. It shows a man whose imagination no longer serves judgment. It drives action.
So the mind is not helping him calculate. It is feeding fear and making the crime feel both irresistible and horrifying.
Yes. And right after the murder, that gets worse. He hears voices. He cannot say amen. He fixates on sleep. He stares at his bloody hands as if they can never be clean. This is not guilt as a noble feeling. It is evidence that he cannot absorb what he has done and remain functional.
Which means the crown does not solve his problem. It exposes it.
Exactly. Once he is king, he has the title but not the inner steadiness needed to hold power. So he rules the only way a frightened man can rule, through fear.
Banquo is the first clear example. Macbeth has already won the crown. Banquo is not attacking him, but Macbeth cannot live with threat in his head.
That is the pattern. A secure ruler can weigh risk and wait. Macbeth cannot. The prophecy about Banquo's heirs gets inside him, and instead of governing the kingdom, he starts trying to kill the future. He hires murderers because he cannot tolerate uncertainty.
Then, the banquet scene makes the point in public. He is meant to look like a stable king in front of the nobles, and instead, he falls apart in front of an empty chair.
Yes, the ghost matters because it shows private disorder spilling into public rule. A king who cannot master his own terror, cannot control the room, cannot reassure allies, cannot keep authority intact. His inner panic becomes a political fact.
And after that, he goes further. More violence, less control.
Because fear has become his method. He goes back to the witches not as a mastermind gathering intelligence, but as a desperate man begging for certainty. Then he orders the slaughter of Macduff's wife and children. That is not strategic strength. It is panic with power behind it.
This is where Scotland starts to reflect him.
Exactly. The play does not treat Scotland as a separate backdrop. The kingdom takes on the shape of Macbeth's inner disorder. Sleep is broken. Trust is broken. Loyalty becomes dangerous. People whisper, flee, spy, and die. A mind ruled by fear produces a state ruled by fear.
So, when characters talk about Scotland as sick, they are not just making a poetic comment about bad government.
No, they are naming a direct connection. Macbeth cannot keep order inside himself, so his rule cannot produce order outside himself. His imagination invents threats, his fear inflates them, and his violence spreads the damage across the country.
That also explains why he keeps sounding both bold and terrified at the same time.
Yes, He talks in the language of control, but his actions keep proving dependence. He depends on prophecies, on hired killers, on fresh bloodshed, on shutting down every possible threat. That is not sovereignty. That is bondage to fear.
Which makes the tragedy harsher than the school version. This is not just a brave soldier corrupted by power.
It is a man who cannot command himself, trying to command a nation. That mismatch is fatal from the start. Duncan's murder is not the end of his self-control. It is proof he never had enough of it.
And once that private weakness gets a crown, everyone else pays for it.
That is the real shape of the play. Macbeth's worst political act begins as an inner failure, and Scotland becomes the map of his unruled mind.